Hey, what's up, guys? Brian Ellwood. Look, if you're someone who wants to get into real estate, but the idea of dealing with contractors and managing them and risking getting screwed over on an expensive rehab is scary as hell to you, then this video is going to help clear some of that up for you so you can hopefully move forward and take action on this. So when I first got started, I remember the first property I bought. It was this little crappy property in a bad part of town. It needed $20,000 in work and didn't even have a contractor. I didn't even find out how much the rehab was until after I bought it, which is insane. But we found a contractor and, he gave us the bid. And then I was sort of tasked with managing this guy. And I was literally like living at the house every single day, watching everything he did. He would tell me something was done and it really wasn't done, He was super disorganized and was sending me all these different invoices. And I just had really no idea, what was going on. And so I literally was playing like bookkeeper, keeping him organized. And, it was chaotic. And the rehab took, over a month. And like I was totally absorbed by that rehab when I was supposed to be doing all this other stuff, and running my business. That just like took me completely away from it. I didn't enjoy it. And it was really confusing. Okay. And since then, each time I've worked with a contractor, I've learned a little bit and it's gotten a little better. And I've gotten a little more like disciplined about what I require, when it comes to working with contractors. And so I want to, record this video and just tell you where I'm at on that and give you the best advice I can give you today for managing contractors. Okay. So I feel like I've come a long way. Don't know everything, but I know I can save you guys a lot of time and just avoid a lot of stress and pain and money loss, frankly, from this. Okay. So when you buy a house and then you want it to be renovated, you got to find a contractor to do that. And the contractor is going to give you a set of items that they recommend that you fix. However, they're not always going to find everything. Okay. And so you're going to have to provide them with, maybe an extra list of some things that they didn't find, the things that might have been on the home inspection that you should have gotten that you want them to add in as well. And they're going to have questions for you on like, hey, what kind of floors do you want? What kind of cabinets do you want to use? What kind of tile do you want to use? What type of bathtub do you want me to put in? All that kind of stuff, right? And you guys have got to settle on an agreement, okay? It's literally just called a contractor's bid or a contractor's estimate, okay? And on the surface, it seems really simple. It's like, I will do X amount of work for X amount of money, right? The problem is when you get into the weeds on the job, because there's just so much more that kind of goes on that is not really made clear up front, okay? So a lot of contractors' estimates are very generalized, and they'll just give you a list of things and then one big price, for $11,000, I'll do these 13 things. And you're just like, okay, well, how much, and then they want, $3,000 to start or whatever. And you pay them the $3,000 and then they get into it. And then there's like, some new surprises. And then they're like, yeah, well, this new thing is not part of the original bid. So it's going to cost more money. And then you pay more money. But then the money that you paid goes towards a different part of the project. And then you get confused on, well, where did the $3,000 that I gave you up front go to? And and where are we on this project? You can see how like you need a much more detailed, specific agreement in order for this all to go well. I don't have any idea why I thought that I could do it that way back in the day, where someone would just chicken scratch an estimate out and I would say, okay. And then we would just be flying by the seat of our pants, making all these extra payments. And then you factor in materials into that and it's a huge, huge mess. Okay. So what I do now is I require a line item estimate from contractors. Okay. So I say, hey, just break down every step of this job that you're going to do for me, line by line by line by line, and tell me what that's going to cost. Okay. And then also tell me whether materials are or are not included in that number. Okay. So like if you want them to replace your bathtub, they might say, $300, but that's just going to be for the labor, right? They're going to charge you for the cost of the tub separately. That'll be another, few $100 or whatever, depending on what tub you pick out. Whereas if they're going to drywall your house, the drywall will be included in the cost of the labor. They don't typically charge you for things like that separately, like materials and labor, right? But if it's more of like a specific item, like I'm buying a new pedestal sink for the bathroom or whatever, I'm buying a new countertop for the kitchen, that's going to be a materials cost that's separate, okay? And so you have the original estimate all line item out. So let's picture like literally like 26 lines on a spreadsheet that says exactly what they're going to do and how much it's going to cost. And then you have a separate sheet for all of the materials that you will have to pay for, okay? And so on the first sheet, it'll say, these 17 things, the materials are included, and then these 9 things, you're going to have to buy the materials. Now, when you pay for materials, keep those materials payments separate from the labor payments, okay? It makes sense in hindsight when you think to do it that way, but when you're being sent all these invoices and you get kind of confused, it's easy to just like bundle things together and then you have trouble separating it out later. So you just want to have one main bid where it's either labor only or labor/materials included in the price, right? So those prices are just fixed. And then you have a separate sheet for all the materials that will have to be purchased additionally. Now you can either purchase those yourself, like you could get a Home Depot account and have it all go through there or whatever, and have the contractor just like they call you when they're at the register and they charge your account for it. Or you can have the contractor pay for it and then send you receipts. However you choose to do it is fine, but you'd want to pay for materials separately up front with the contractor if you're going to have them buy the materials for you. So hey, I gave him $2,000 for materials, and then here's all the receipts, so I know that I'm owed a credit back of $170 or whatever at the end, right? And it's separate from the stuff that's labor. Really, really important. The last big piece, guys, is change orders, okay? I don't think I've ever done a rehab, ever, where when they really got into it, if you're talking about putting 10 grand into a house, like they're going to discover something. Just the other day, I was doing a brand new bathroom in my Airbnb. They took up the old tile floor and there was rotten subfloor underneath. They pulled out one of the walls and the stud was rotted underneath that wall. They had to build a temporary wall, put a new stud in, put a new subfloor in. It was like $1,000 worth of work that I didn't plan on having to pay for, right? And so, you got to get all that in a separate invoice that's called a change order. So it's like, hey, this is a change to our original agreement. It's an add-on, if you want to call it that. And it's these items for this amount. And if there's materials in the change order, put those materials over on that materials sheet, separate them out from the bids just so it's clear. What I'm really the central point I'm trying to drive home here is like, do clean and simple and good bookkeeping for your rehabs. It's really important that you do this, not only so you don't overpay, because a lot of times you can get double charged for things, or and if you're just sending that off to your office manager and saying pay the invoice, like you can be paying way more than you were supposed to pay, because contractors typically are not very organized. So it's not even that they're doing it on purpose, but they're just missing stuff. And you're being double charged for things, and like new things that weren't part of the agreement are being thrown in. You also need accurate bookkeeping to take to your accountant, right? Because if you do a rehab, that gets rolled into what's called the depreciable amount, the amount that you can depreciate against for the next 27 years when you do your depreciation write-off on your property, right? You roll in what you did. If the rehab was like a kind of a major rehab, that is involved in the depreciable amount versus being a tax deduction, okay? So you need to have total accurate records of how much you spent for that purpose, okay? So, yeah, guys, like this has been, quite a learning lesson for me, like managing contractors. You want to find someone that communicates well, is really easy to work with, and can just use basic spreadsheets. Like I will, like if that main original bid that they send me on a spreadsheet where it's all broken down, like I'll like put that over onto Google Sheets so I have my own little copy. And then when they send me invoices throughout the job, it'll just be for like, 20% of the items on the master bid, the big one. And as I pay that invoice, I'll go to the master bid and I'll mark those things green or blue or whatever, just to say, hey, this has been paid. So I'm secretly kind of keeping track, taking my own notes over here on whether or not something, I've paid for something, just to make sure I'm not overpaying. And that's how you do good management of your rental property rehabs. That's how you manage contractors well. You got to stay on top of the numbers. You got to really understand the numbers super well. It's very important that you do that and you don't just ignore it, which I did for many years, and it just cost me a lot of money and I never really learned my lesson. Okay? So I hope that helps, guys, and go out there and find yourself a fantastic contractor, manage them well, and this process will go much, much smoother for you. Okay? That's all I got for you. I'll see you next time.